Big Gay Ice Cream. How a narcissist destroys your business. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Narcissists destroy many things. Relationships, commonly romantic ones, but also familial, working, social ones also. They destroy trust. Narcissists destroy self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence. They can destroy people's finances. They can destroy somebody's coping mechanisms. Many of these things can be repaired. Finances might be put together again. Relationships can be mended, but not all. It's usually the case that your relationship with another person that might have been affected by a narcissist can be repaired, but invariably, and particularly if you are following a no-contact regime, then you ought not seek to repair your relationship with the narcissist, but rather you should stay well away from them. A narcissist can also come along and destroy a person's business. They might do that for the purpose of trying to take out an opponent, a competing business, smearing it, pinching employees. In some instances, the narcissist secretes themselves within the business, and as a consequence of the functioning of their narcissism, the need to control other people, drawing fuel from people, acquiring character traits and residual benefits, their behaviors end up destroying that business. Not every narcissist will place themselves within a business with a view to destroying it. On the contrary, they will believe that they're there to enhance it, to enrich it, to expand it. But the way that their narcissism functions is such that because it's focused upon giving the narcissist what they need, namely controlling people at any cost, extracting fuel from them come what may, often securing promotions or advancement or gaining stock, gaining more money, it does all of that at the cost of the business. And I'm going to take you through an excellent example of how a narcissist arrived in a business and then promptly destroyed it, leading to there being allegations of mismanagement and fraud. The article in the New York Times concerns a brand called Big Gay Ice Cream. Certainly, it's something that will catch the eye. It was all rainbows and unicorns for a while, but like many fun ideas, Big Gay Ice Cream has wound up in debt and in court. In other words, it's effectively been destroyed. With a rollicking rise that leveraged queer identity as a brand strategy, the New York City-based soft-serve chain opened 7 shops in the Northeast and landed its products in supermarkets nationwide. The company now is down to just 1 location. Just recently, founder and partner Doug Quint filed a lawsuit in New York State Supreme Court accusing another partner, John Chapsky, of mismanaging the company and fraudulently collecting government loans during the pandemic. Mr. Chapsky said only that he was reviewing the lawsuit with his lawyer and would respond when appropriate. In 2009, when the Big Gay Ice Cream truck first rolled into the annual Brooklyn Pride Parade, it caught a wave of pop culture that included hits like RuPaul's Drag Race, Lady Gaga's Born This Way, and Orange is the New Black, and marked a national shift that culminated in the legalization of marriage for same-sex couples across the country in 2015. The company's first shops exploded in Greenwich Village in a burst of rainbow sprinkles. Locals and tourists alike thrilled to the cheeky branding, Barbie dolls, glitter, Golden Girls references, and made pilgrimages for B. Arthur swirls and Monday Sundays. Mr. Quint and Brian Petrov, the avuncular and gay founders, went on to draw a mainstream following that helped make Don't Ask, Don't Tell a thing of the past, in food marketing at least. In 2017, Nestlé began distributing the company's hard-pack ice cream in supermarkets nationwide. People magazine covered the introduction of 3 new flavors in 2019. I thought Big Gay was my life's work, the thing I was meant to do, said Mr. Quint, who gave up his decades-long career as a classical musician in 2011, when the business had 2 profitable stores, and he had secured a 6-figure deal to write the cookbook Big Gay Ice Cream, Saucy Stories and Frozen Treats. During the pandemic, though, the good vibes evaporated. Today, after multiple missteps, unpaid debts and evictions, the company's future is murky. Mr. Quint is working in a Walgreens pharmacy in Pittsfield, Maine, where he grew up. Mr. Petrov works in human resources for a New York restaurant chain. Both men say they hope to pull the company back from the brink and continue without Mr. Chapsky, whom they hired as a financial advisor in 2011 and made a partner in 2016. The founders continued to develop new products and marketing efforts, but Mr. Chapsky effectively ran the business. Mr. Quint is seeking at least $4 million, claiming damages arising from breach of contract, fiduciary responsibility, and willful misconduct by Mr. Chapsky. Mr. Petrov, who like Mr. Quint still retains a 35% ownership stake, has declined to be a party to the suit, citing the expense of legal representation, but said Mr. Quint had his full support. In his lawsuit, Mr. Quint accuses Mr. Chapsky of failing to pay landlords, lack of accountability, failure to pay vendors, lack of accountability, failure to pay the IRS, lack of accountability, concealing legal proceedings, deceit, and business moves from him and Mr. Petrov, collecting government loans during the pandemic while the stores remained closed and employees went unpaid, residual benefit, self-enrichment, fraud. Public records show that the 4 New York stores, each of which is a separate limited liability corporation, received loans totaling more than $500,000. Mr. Quint said in an interview that Mr. Chapsky has maintained his lifestyle even as the company has descended into debt. So there's no surprises there that Mr. Chapsky, having achieved a particular standard of living, that status is important to him, and he wishes to maintain it no matter what the cost, because that status affords the assertion of control, and he does so without any due concern as to the impact upon the company, given the absence of emotional empathy that he suffers from. Mr. Chapsky and his wife Agnes, a former publisher of In Style and Allure magazines, owns a 2,000 square foot loft in Tribeca and a beach house in New York. The beach property went into foreclosure on August 14th, according to documents filed in Suffolk County Supreme Court. The one remaining ice cream store on the Upper West Side of Manhattan is operated by Jeremy Vladis, a long-time neighborhood restaurateur. On Friday, Mr. Vladis said he had been granted permission to use the Big Gay brand and recipes by Mr. Chapsky, who repeatedly assured him that the founders were no longer involved. Asset appropriation, lack of accountability, lie. Mr. Vladis told The Times that he felt uneasy about the arrangement and tried many times to contact them directly, but never got a reply. Mr. Quint and Mr. Petrov say that was because Mr. Chapsky had secretly blocked their access to company email and social media feeds. Assertion of control, ostracization, alienation. The company began as a summer job lark when Mr. Quint and Mr. Petrov outfitted an old van, created a menu of bedazzled soft-serve treats, and sailed it to Prospect Park as the Big Gay Ice Cream truck. Zach Young, now a Food Network star and then the pastry chef at Butter in Nolita, said he felt equal parts shock, fear and pride when the truck rolled out. I thought, you can't do that, you can't say that. Restaurant kitchens were rife with homophobic abuse, he said, and even the traditional pink ghetto of pastry operations was usually run by straight white men, though women and gay men often carried out the pastry chef's vision. The company's rapid rise proved to me that you could be queer and open in the food space and still be safe and loved, Mr. Young said. Not everyone was a fan. Some LGBTQ people balked at the upbeat marketing of a community still enduring hate, Bill Yosses, the pastry chef at Blue Hill and Stone Barns, said it trivialises the real struggles that gay people have endured. Christina Tosi, the pastry chef and founder of the Milk Bar dessert shops, had just started working at the New York restaurant Momofuku when Big Gay first rolled out. They had a commitment to flavour and creativity and humour that carved out space for us all, she said. She went on to build an empire on innovative tastes like cereal milk flavoured soft serve. People's willingness to cannonball and take a chance comes from them, she said. The Big Gay ice cream stores in the East Village and West Village flourished. The truck toured the south, drawing crowds in Atlanta and Charleston. A Philadelphia shop followed, along with local high-profile New York locations like the South Street Seaport and Madison Square Garden. As the business expanded, the two founders relied on Mr. Chapsky's consulting company, Edible Assets, for bookkeeping and financial management. In the 2016 partnership agreement, Mr. Quint and Mr. Petrov each retained a 35% share in the company, with the remaining 30% held by Edible Assets. That same year, they signed an amendment that gave Mr. Chapsky final authority and unilateral decision-making power over all financial matters. Oh dear. That is where you're letting the wolf into the chicken house. Giving a narcissist such carte blanche power is only going to end in tears. The same power was granted to Mr. Quint and Mr. Petrov for the creative direction of the company, but that isn't where the money is. We were so naive, Mr. Quint said ruefully, acknowledging that he and Mr. Petrov willingly entrusted Mr. Chapsky with both their corporate finances and personal livelihoods. It may well be the case that the pair of them were being affected by emotional thinking, causing them to fail to see what they were dealing with, and resulting in them making poor decisions. But once Mr. Chapsky was made a partner in Big Gay, according to the founders and 3 former employees, he pushed for growth, self-absorption, that the company's income and infrastructure could not sustain, lack of accountability. He was always talking about being the next Starbucks, said Gary Hernandez, a long-time manager who resigned in 2019. Big Gay's trajectory isn't unusual in the food world. After a rapid rise in popularity and collaborations with Disney and Marvel, the Brooklyn ice cream darling Ample Hills was bought by a venture capital firm and forced into bankruptcy. Mr. Hernandez said that Mr. Quint and Mr. Petrov were not involved in Big Gay's day-to-day operations or financial matters. Accordingly, they, as the founders, had been sidelined by Mr. Chapsky, enabling him to get his hands on the reins of power. Those reins of power on the financial side, of course, allowing him to assert control over people, to draw fuel by their response, and, of course, importantly for him, enable access to a considerable residual benefit. After the company began expanding, chaos, conflict, and angry calls from vendors and landlords became common. That's when stuff started going haywire, he said. Note that these individuals aren't being paid. And that's because Mr. Chapsky, operating with his sense of entitlement and a lack of accountability, saw no need to do so. And he had no concern about shafting the company in that regard. Even so, by 2017, the brand was strong enough to earn a coveted place in supermarket freezers, with pints sold nationally at stores like Safeway, Wawa, and CVS. Mr. Quint was walking his dog when his sister first sent a photograph of the pints at the market in his rural hometown. He packed the car and drove straight to Maine. I had to see it with my own eyes, he said. Then he said he went to the dumpster out back and cried for the miserable gay teenager who had fled to New York to study music in 1989. But in 2020, with the stores closed indefinitely under lockdown, Mr. Quint says he was forced to move out of New York, taking a minimum wage job at CVS. In 2021, the flagship store in the East Village closed. Soon after, the company was evicted from its shops in the West Village and Philadelphia. For the West Village store alone, the back rent owed was nearly $400,000, according to court documents. Failure to pay being a failure of accountability. Without his knowledge, he said, federal loan money was flowing in, while judgments and summonses were piling up on the doorstep of his unoccupied apartment. What we didn't realize is that creative control is meaningless if the money is all up to someone else. A destroyed business, learning the hard way about the focus on creative control and then handing the reins of power over to somebody else who quite clearly is a narcissist in their behavior of utilizing in effect the business as their own cash cow, drawing in federal loans but not paying anybody. Where has that money gone? There'll be no doubt that it's been embezzled, and highly likely that it's found its way into Mr. Chapsky's pockets. There'll be more from this as the court case pans out, but it's clear that what was a fledgling business that was expanding, that was getting plenty of publicity and was doing well, making profits, all of a sudden found itself in a situation where it attracted the attention of a narcissist. And the narcissist enabled, through, no doubt, charm and persuasion, himself to get hold of the reins of power, causing Mr. Quint and Mr. Petrov to think that they could focus on what they enjoyed, the creative side of the business, while believing that they had placed the financial side in the safe hands of Mr. Chapsky. There will have been the signs beforehand with regard to his behaviours, but they will not have picked up upon them. Now they're left ruing the cost of how a narcissist entered their business, took over it, and stripped it, leaving it destroyed. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.